Hello and welcome to another episode of Discover with Spinetti. Today's episode number 123. We're talking about how to get more done with your time that you have very limited time of. And so, a lot of people are overwhelmed with the amount of tasks that they have to do because they don't feel like they have enough time for them to get it done. And it's actually a lot simpler than you think. And as you see here in the little title there, where I said get more done in less time, the solution is actually quite simple. The reason why I say the solution is quite simple is because you find yourself not having enough time to do a lot of things, yet you see a lot of people accomplishing a lot of things, and a lot of people not accomplishing many things. But we all have the same amount of time. We all have 24 hours. So what is the difference between them? And I am here to tell you. And drum roll, please. Habit number 3. So we started talking about habit number 1, which is being proactive, and habit number 2, which is thinking with the end in mind, meaning prioritizing. And now habit number 3. And remember, these are the series of habits of the 7 habits of highly effective people from Stephen Covey, the late Stephen Covey, who came up with this book and has sold over 15 million copies, which is incredible. And it really speaks to the incredible value that this has. And he has a quote in there that is absolutely beautiful. And he says, peace of mind is not attained through mindset or attitude. We always think of, if you want to achieve something, the first thing that you have to actually transform is your mindset. And he says it's not about that. It's not about mindset. It's not about attitude. And I've always really thought about something along those lines, because to me, I'm like, well, even if you have the positive mindset, even if you have the can-do attitude, how is that going to help you get things done? Well, he says that in order for you to live a life of fulfillment, a life that you're proud of, a life that, that breeds happiness for you, is that you have to stick to your principles and values, the true principles and true values. And so that's why he distilled these 7 habits in order for you to live a happy life, an effective life, so that you can look back and be proud of the things that you've accomplished and feel that you're fulfilled. So, habit number 3 deals with time, and in it he teaches the quadrant method. And this is used by literally almost every single major corporation, every single small business, medium business, every single coach, anyone that you want to talk to, this is used by them. So it's worthy to pay attention, because there are certain things that we put ourselves into. There are 4 quadrants, and we put ourselves into these quadrants of time, but we don't actually put ourselves into the quadrant of time that actually matters. And how is this quadrant actually formed? Well, there are 2 factors. The first factor is when you're considering something that you need to do, you have to ask yourself, is it important? And after that question is you have to ask yourself, how urgent is it? Is it urgent or is it non-urgent? Urgency determines the time in which you have to do it immediately, or you can delay it. That's the urgency. The importance means how worthy of your time is this activity. So I'll give you an example. So an example would be to scroll through Instagram or scroll through any kind of social media platform. Okay, so that you would say, okay, well, how important is it? Not important. How urgent is it? Not urgent. Okay, so that is in a quadrant by itself. So because of these, these 2 factors, you can divide them into 4 different quadrants. So you have quadrant 1, which is important and urgent. So things that are incredibly important and urgent are things that you have to put out, like a fire, for instance. You see a fire, you have to put it out right away because it's important and urgent. So if you have a lot of fires in your life, right? So everything you have to put out all the time, then that is going to lead to, according to Stephen Covey, it's going to lead to burnout, right? So the principle of burnout, meaning that you don't feel like you're actually getting anything done, right? You're just putting out fires. So that's quadrant 1, when you're solely focusing on what's important and what's urgent. And that quadrant, by the way, pops up when you delay things, right? So when you're spending a lot of time on things that are not important and not urgent, then the things that are important become incredibly urgent. And now at that point, then you have to put out those fires. And so that's going to burn you out, because as habit number 1 says, being proactive allows you to be in a different type of quadrant, allows you to be in a more prepared state. So you're prepared. Whereas if you're not prepared, you're just waiting for things to happen, then you're always going to be in reactionary mode, which is the opposite of habit one. Okay, so that's quadrant number one. Quadrant number three, yes, I'm skipping quadrant number two. Quadrant number three is the things that are not important but urgent. So those are things that interrupt your day, right? So those are the things that you allow to interrupt you. So, for instance, someone calls you. Instead of you saying, well, no, I have other things I need to do, you pick up the phone. Someone texts you. You text them right away. Those are interruptions. So those are things that, yes, they're urgent because, someone called you. So it's a time-sensitive issue, right? But is it important? Well, no, because you have other important matters to take care of. So that's why that becomes something that, a lot of people spend time in because they feel that they're actually getting things done, when in reality, you're not getting things done. And this leads, by the way, when you're spending time in these quadrants, this leads to a state of overwhelm where you feel like you don't have enough time to get anything done because you're spending so much time putting out fires and getting interrupted, because that's where your focus is going on quadrant one and quadrant three. Quadrant four are all the time wasters. So quadrant four is what I mentioned before, which is, scrolling through social media, looking at YouTube, looking at TikTok, looking at, things that are literally not going to produce any results towards your goals. So remember, habit two was begin with the end in mind, meaning think about what you want to achieve in your life. Think about what you want to achieve in this year, right? So in the remainder of this year, in 2025, there are 225 days left until 2025. Okay. I didn't make this up. You can actually look it up. Today, there are 225 days left until 2025. And so this is the day that you can use in order to spearhead yourself into quadrant number two, which is the holy grail of all quadrants, which is the time management, the thing that you should be most focused on, which is the things that are important but not urgent. Because when you focus on things that are important and not urgent, now you're in peace of mind mode. Now you're proactive. Now you're thinking with the end in mind. Now you're planning things. So what does that look like? So the things that Stephen Covey outlines in quadrant number two are exercise, relationships, and building something that is worthy. So those are the things that he focuses on. And he says that that is what leads people to fulfillment or happiness, because then you feel productive, right? As is often said, that progress equals happiness, right? So progress equals happiness. So if we feel like we're actually progressing, we're actually moving towards a goal. I mean, we're all goal oriented by nature, right? All of us have different goals, but we're all goal oriented. And so if we feel we're actually going to a certain goal, we're actually achieving things, then that leads us to happiness. And that is quadrant number two. Now, how do you master quadrant number two? How do you master this putting first things first? How do you do that? Very, very simple. The first thing is you have to realize all the tasks that you need to get done. Okay, and all the tasks you need to get done for the things that you're trying to achieve. Okay, so you put down all the things that you need to get done, even the things that don't fall in the things that within the realm of things you want to achieve. Put them in, because that's part of the exercise. So step number one is coming up with a list of all the things that you need to get done. Okay, so that's the thing. So you need to come up with a huge list. The second one, which Stephen Covey says this is the hardest part that all of us face, this part right here, not the task part. All of us can put up a to-do list, but it's the prioritizing. That is what we all struggle with, is what is most important. Okay, and it's literally a trial and error thing. Okay, because you may think that this is important, but in reality something else is important. But as long as you're actually in that exercise on a daily basis, then you'll get to figure things out more and more as time goes on. But as long as you start today, the day which is there's 225 days left until 2025, then you're on the right path towards the end of the year. So the first thing is come up with a list. Second is prioritize. So what's important, what's less important, and so on and so forth. Then what you do and what's urgent, right? So you want to say, okay, what's important and what's urgent, and you want to categorize those and put them into those quadrants. So there is the quadrant 1, which is important and urgent, quadrant 2, which is important, not urgent, quadrant 3, which is not important but urgent. Okay, hopefully there aren't too many of those. Okay, and quadrant 4, which basically it's your time wasters. It's your non-productive things that you want to do that don't really lead to anything, but they're non-productive, right? They're just kind of time wasters. They're fillers. And that's it. Okay, follow that. Put yourself into quadrant 2. And by the way, by actually doing the whole planning exercise and coming up with a list and all that jazz, you will be in quadrant 2. Like as you're doing it, you're actually in quadrant 2, planning for quadrant 2. So that is it, my friends. For you to manage your time and get more done in less time, you have 225 days left until 2025. 140 days have passed since the start of 2024. So we're not even at the halfway mark. Therefore, you still have time is still on your side for this year. So do not give up. Do not feel demotivated. Feel energized. Feel full of hope because you still have 225 days left until 2025. Use this method of habit number 3 to spearhead yourself towards your goals. And have yourself a wonderful Monday. And always keep smiling.